There is something about being home alone at night that makes every sound feel personal. During the day, noises blend together. At night, they stand out. Every creak feels closer. Every thud feels intentional. This story was sent in by a guy named Aaron. At the time, he was 22 years old and renting a small single-story house on the edge of a quiet suburb. It was the kind of neighborhood where nothing ever really happened. No loud parties, no traffic noise, just long streets and identical houses. The house itself was simple. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, thin walls, old wooden floors that creaked even when you tried to step lightly. Aaron did not love the place, but the rent was cheap and it was close to work. Aaron worked late shifts at a grocery distribution warehouse, long hours, repetitive work, so getting home around midnight was normal for him. Most nights felt exactly the same. Park the car, unlock the door, go inside, eat something, sleep. That night started the same way. He pulled into the driveway just after midnight. The street was quiet, no other cars passing by, no lights in the neighboring houses. He grabbed his bag, unlocked the front door, and stepped inside. The house was completely dark. No lights were on, no television noise, no background sound at all. Just silence. At first, nothing felt strange. He locked the door behind him, dropped his keys on the kitchen counter, and walked toward the fridge to get a drink. He was already thinking about going to bed. Then he heard it. A soft thud. Not loud, not sudden, just a dull sound that made him stop walking. It sounded like it came from the hallway. Aaron stood still for a few seconds. He told himself it was nothing. Old houses made noise all the time. Wood expanded, pipes shifted, floors popped. He had heard all of it before. Still, the timing felt off. The sound happened right after he walked in. He shook it off and grabbed a glass from the cabinet. He filled it with water and took a slow sip, trying to relax. That is when he heard it again. Another thud. This one was quieter, but closer. Aaron set the glass down slowly. He did not move. He just listened. His heart started beating faster, and he became very aware of how quiet the house really was. The air felt different, not heavy, just wrong, like the house was not empty anymore. He cleared his throat and said, "Hello." No answer. He checked his phone. No missed calls, no messages. His roommates were out of town for the weekend. He was supposed to be completely alone. For a moment, he stood there debating what to do. Then he reached into the kitchen drawer and grabbed a knife. Not because he planned to use it. Holding it just made him feel a little less exposed. He stepped into the hallway. The air felt colder there. The lights were still off, so the only light came from the street light outside, shining through the windows and stretching long shadows across the floor and walls. That is when he heard footsteps. Slow, soft, almost careful. They were moving away from him. The sound came from the direction of his bedroom. Aaron froze. His mind raced through every explanation he could think of. He had locked the door. The windows were closed. No one else had a key. There was no reason anyone should be inside. He took one step forward. The footsteps stopped. He waited. His breathing sounded loud in his own ears. The silence felt tight, like it was pressing in on him. Then, from inside his bedroom, he heard something else. A whisper. It wasn't a word, just a quiet breath, like someone exhaling on purpose. That was enough.
Aaron did not check the bedroom. He did not turn on the lights. He turned around, ran out the front door, jumped into his car, and drove straight to a friend's house without stopping. He barely slept that night. The next morning, after the sun was up, he returned with his friend. Together, they searched the entire house, every room, every closet, every window. Nothing was missing, nothing was broken. There were no signs of anyone else being there. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. Aaron's bedroom door was closed. He was certain he had left it open before leaving for work. And he never lived alone in that house again.
Being alone is not always scary. Being known is. This story comes from a woman named Claire. At the time, she was living in a 2-story townhouse in a quiet residential area. It was not a bad place. Safe neighborhood, calm streets, the kind of area where people walked their dogs in the evening, and nothing unusual ever seemed to happen. Claire had recently gone through a breakup. Her roommate decided to visit family out of town for a few days, and Claire chose to stay home alone. She actually looked forward to it. No noise, no small talk, just time to herself. That night felt normal, comfortable even. She ordered food, watched random videos on her phone, and stayed up later than she should have. The house was quiet, but it was the good kind of quiet, the kind that makes you feel relaxed. Around 1:30 in the morning, Claire went upstairs to get ready for bed. She turned off the lights downstairs and climbed the stairs slowly, already half tired. That is when the doorbell rang. She froze on the top step. Nobody ever rang her doorbell that late. Friends would always text first. Delivery drivers were long gone, and her neighborhood was usually completely silent after midnight. She waited, hoping maybe she imagined it. Then the doorbell rang again. This time it lasted longer. The sound felt deliberate, like whoever was outside wanted to make sure she heard it. Claire felt her chest tighten. She pulled out her phone and checked it. No messages, no missed calls. Slowly, she walked to the top of the stairs and looked down toward the front door. The porch light was off, but through the frosted glass, she could see a shape standing outside, just a silhouette, still, close to the door. She did not call out. She did not move. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Unknown number. The message said, "I know you are home." Her stomach dropped instantly. Her hands started shaking as she stared at the screen. She had not made any noise. No lights were on downstairs. There was no reason anyone should know she was there. She typed back slowly, "Who is this?" The reply came almost immediately, "I just want to talk." Claire took a step back from the stairs. Her heart was racing now. She turned and hurried into her bedroom, locking the door behind her. She turned off the light and sat down on the floor next to her bed, holding her phone with both hands. She tried to slow her breathing. Then her phone buzzed again. "I can hear you moving." Claire felt cold all over. That was the moment she realized something terrifying. Her bedroom window faced the street. If someone was outside, they would be able to see straight into her room if the blinds were open. Very slowly, she crawled toward the window. She stayed low, moving carefully, afraid that any sound would give her away. Her heart was pounding so hard, she was sure it could be heard. She reached the window and gently pulled one corner of the blinds aside. The porch was empty. The person who had been standing at her front door was gone. For a brief moment, she felt relief.
Maybe they had left. Maybe this was over. Then she noticed movement across the street. Someone was standing near the sidewalk, partially in shadow. They were facing her house, and they were looking directly at her window. Claire dropped the blinds and backed away, pressing herself against the wall. She did not respond to any more messages. Instead, she called the police and stayed on the line, whispering as quietly as she could. She watched the window the entire time, terrified to look but unable to stop herself. The figure across the street did not move. It did not wave. It did not come closer. It just stood there, completely still, like it was waiting for something. When the police arrived, the person was gone. They searched the area. They checked nearby streets. They found nothing. No footprints, no witnesses, no suspects. The number that messaged her never texted again. Claire moved out 2 weeks later. To this day, she still does not know how that person got her number or how they knew she was alone that night.
Sometimes the scariest moments happen when you think the night is already over. This final story was sent in by someone named Daniel. At the time, he lived alone in a small apartment on the 3rd floor of an older building. The place was worn down but affordable. Thin walls, narrow hallways, one main entrance, and a fire escape outside the bedroom window. Daniel liked living alone. He liked the quiet. He liked the routine. And most of all, he liked staying up late. He was a night owl. Almost every night, he stayed awake gaming until early morning. Headphones on, lights low, completely focused on the screen. When he played, the outside world did not exist. That night felt no different. Hours passed without him noticing. At some point, he glanced at the clock and saw it was a little after 3 in the morning. His eyes felt tired, and his head hurt slightly from staring at the screen. He decided it was finally time to stop. Daniel took his headphones off. That was when he realized how quiet everything was. No traffic outside, no distant sirens, no neighbors talking or moving around. Even the usual hum of the building felt absent. Just silence. At first, it felt peaceful. Then he heard something. A chair scraping across the floor. It came from inside his apartment. Daniel froze in his seat. His hands rested on the desk, and his eyes stayed locked on the dark screen in front of him. He listened closely, hoping maybe he misunderstood the sound. Then it happened again. The slow scrape of wood against tile. Controlled, careful, like someone was adjusting their seat. Daniel swallowed and whispered, "Hello?" The word barely left his mouth. No response. His heart began to pound, and he could feel it in his ears. He stood up slowly, every muscle tense, trying not to make a sound. The noise had come from the kitchen. There was no mistaking that. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness as he stepped into the hallway. The kitchen came into view. It was empty. No one was standing there. No movement, nothing out of place at first glance. Then he noticed the chair. The chair at the small kitchen table had been pulled out.
Daniel stared at it, his chest tightening. He knew for a fact he had not used that chair that night. He had not eaten at the table. He had not gone into the kitchen since earlier that evening. Slowly, he took a step back. That was when he heard breathing. Not his. It was low and steady, coming from the hallway behind him. Daniel turned his head slightly. The sound was coming from the closet. The door was closed, but the breathing was clear enough that he could not deny it. Someone was standing inside, close, quiet, aware. Daniel did not scream. He did not run. Carefully, he stepped backward toward his bedroom, keeping his eyes forward, afraid that if he looked away, something would happen. Once inside, he closed the door as slowly as he could and locked it. His hands were shaking. He crossed the room and opened the window. Cold air rushed in as he climbed out onto the fire escape. The metal felt freezing against his hands and legs, but he did not care. He pulled the window shut behind him and sat down. Daniel spent the rest of the night outside, sitting on cold metal, watching his own apartment window from the fire escape. He did not look away. He barely blinked. Every shadow inside the room felt like movement. When the sun finally started to rise, he called the police. They arrived and searched the apartment thoroughly. Every room, every corner, every closet. They found no one. No signs of forced entry, no missing items, nothing disturbed, except for one thing. The hallway closet door was open. Daniel never stayed another night in that apartment, and to this day, he still wonders how long someone had been there, listening, while he was gaming with his headphones on.